Hey look, it's me! Kinda, sorta, not really. You know what, let's just not dwell on that. We've got a lot of ground to cover. 7 attacks worth of ground, in fact, starting with the dash and slash. The aerial slash. The splashdown. The jump. The flail. The outbreak. And summon balloon. Honestly, the Broken Vessel probably sounds a good bit like Hornet just going by those attacks, and the skills the game is calling us to win are very much the same. For the dash and slash, you're probably getting tired of hearing about it, but maybe Team Cherry shouldn't have given this attack to so many bosses, huh? You ever think of that? You know the drill. Jump towards, not away from, and nail pogo for good measure. Next, the aerial slash is the exact same thing, but overhead. This is probably his easiest attack, since it's so heavily telegraphed and remarkably easy to both dodge and punish. Just don't jump and don't retreat. I like to hit him with a slash from underneath just to give myself that much more wiggle room. The splashdown is somewhat imposing, but it's one of many attacks that is simply easier to dodge the closer you are. When you see him pause way up in the air, dash over to right next to where he'll land, and you won't have to spare a thought for those 4 projectiles, especially if you knock him away from his landing spot so you can stand there instead. On the other hand, the jump looks simple, but this is where things get tricky. You may have noticed that this is his 3rd jumping maneuver, and while the last 2 are simple to dodge, their similar wind-up animations need that you need a strategy for dodging that keeps you safe from all 3. The best you can do is always dash towards the Broken Vessel when he jumps, so as to try and end up behind him. However, like many bosses who jump, it's not always clear whether he's targeting your position or just moving around. It's entirely possible that he is jumping to the exact spot that you're trying to dash to, and unfortunately, there's really just no substitute for reacting in this case. The timing is tight, but I believe in you. As long as you're more focused on evading than attacking, it shouldn't be a problem. Oh, but we're only like halfway done, aren't we? Right, well, next is the flail. Now's a good time to bring up what makes Broken Vessel pretty unique among bosses, and that is his extreme susceptibility to knockback. Every hit you land on him will budge him away like the entire length of your nail. It's kinda nuts. Why do I bring this up now? Well, basically this attack's range is kind of less than the distance that he gets knocked back when you hit him. So as long as you're not being incredibly aggressive and staying right up in his face, every attack you land is already keeping you safe from this attack. As far as I can tell, the flail is really only there to punish players who are overly cautious and won't seize the opportunity to attack. The outbreak, on the other hand, is an absolute mess. This attack belongs in a bullet hell, not a hack and slash, but here it is. Thankfully, the amount of times he'll use this attack is set. He'll only use it when he's brought to 370 HP, 220, and 110. This attack also freezes his stagger counter and makes him immune to knockback. There are 2 ways you can go about dodging this. 1, you can flee to the edge of the screen, as far from the vessel as possible. From here, you only have to focus on the projectiles that fly the furthest, and are therefore the most telegraphed. The entirely unconventional nature of their trajectories makes this tactic a little difficult, but it shouldn't take too much trial and error to determine which blob is actually coming up underfoot. 2, only possible if your soul meter is full, is the much more aggressive approach. Park yourself right next to the Broken Vessel, wait until the first projectiles are breaking ground, and spam your ground pound. It takes 3 ground pounds to completely outlast this attack, so if you don't have that much soul stocked up, you're better off with the first tactic. But this one requires less actual skill at dodging, and does have pretty hefty returns for damage. His final attack, which doesn't actually really feel like an attack, is Summon Balloon. He'll only start doing this after he falls to 420 HP, at which point these infected balloons will start spawning at intervals of about once every 5 seconds. These things are practically not worth worrying about, as they only have 1 HP and they both despawn and stop spawning whenever the Broken Vessel uses Outbreak. Again, his uses of Outbreak are guaranteed, so as long as you're keeping the pressure up on him, these infected balloons are likely not even to be a factor. On top of that, they tend to just sort of run into your nail as you're attacking the boss anyway, so thankfully these guys are definitely no big deal. And it sure is nice that we're never really going to have to worry about these guys during a boss fight. Nope, definitely not. Now, game plan time, we want to be aggressive but restrained. The ease at which we can knock him back can make it tempting to just stay relentless, but you want to make sure to let up if you ever drive him into a corner. If you can't knock him away because his back is to a wall, he's likely to hit you with Flail, and you'll have much less time to react to his dash and slash. So give him some time to jump away from the wall. Of course, you'll always want to try and stay pretty centered yourself, only giving up the ground when he uses Outbreak. Healing is probably the only thing that's a struggle with this fight, as even while he's staggered, the infected balloons can still spawn, and may interrupt your healing. The frequency of his other attacks makes healing while he's not staggered an especially bad idea. However, his stagger stats are so low that you'll almost always benefit more from just keeping the pressure up and landing more hits, not to mention that it's a good idea to save your soul for countering his outbreak attack. If you must heal, however, I recommend bringing along either Quick Focus or Defender's Crest. Remember, the infected balloons only have 1 HP, so the Defender's Crest will take them out no problem. Even still, try to only heal when he's staggered. Now, this guy has committed a massive faux pas copying our whole aesthetic. Let's teach him a thing or two, shall we? And this fight is sort of weird. There are no changes, no significant changes besides health from the base game. The biggest difference is that by this point you will have most likely fought the Lost Kin. And just compared to most other bosses, the Broken Vessel is very slow. Oop, that was that. Alright, not too bad. Yeah, the Broken Vessel is very, very slow. That relatively slow speed can actually cause you to fake yourself out and maybe react too fast to some of his attacks, which causes you to fall right back into their hitbox. It's sort of an odd anomaly wherein in something that objectively makes a boss fight easier actually can make them a little bit harder. But overall, the only really big difference from last time is the fact that we now have Desolate Dark instead of Desolate Dive, which has a lot more invincibility frames, which makes it even easier to get through that entire outbreak attack, no problem. And that was only Ascended, but we did do it without getting hit, which means I'm very confident in our chances against the Radiant fight. Alright, bring it on, my brother. That was a good example. I kind of lollygagged there in a weird way that I wouldn't have if we'd been fighting his Dream rematch. But there's really not too much worth psyching yourself out about here. This is just one of the easier fights. And as before, the difficulty that may be added by summoning some balloons, which we didn't even see, is easily counteracted by how easy it is to stagger him and get him to use his outbreak attack. But that was it.
Thank you for watching Boss Blitz. As usual, all the context for all the clips you saw are going to be in the playlist that you see on screen at the top left. Next up, we're going to rematch the Broken Vessel immediately and take on the Lost Kin.